Hello, Freedom Nation. It's Jeff here once again with another episode of the Freedom Nation podcast. And on today's show, I've got Dr. Roger Wu. He's coming is coming to us from LA, and we're going to have a conversation about a side business that he's built. He's an eye doctor by trade, and he actually has a really interesting take on how to kind of reverse some of the eye damage that we get from working on computers and looking at our devices all day long. So stay tuned. We'll be right back on in a second and we'll learn a little bit about it.
All in you. Everything you're looking for, it's all in you. You gotta believe that it's all in you. Everything you're searching for, it's all in.
Hey, everybody, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. I've got Dr. Roger Wu on. How are you, Mr. Dr. Wu?
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Thanks,
I was
Jeff.
going down the
Happy New
path
Year.
of like ophthalmologist, obstetrician. I just gave up. He's an eye doctor. Well, thanks for joining the show. Tell us a little bit about your story. How did you, I know you're a medical doctor, but how did you kind of jump off the rails and start a small business too?
Well, this is actually not my first time starting a
Okay,
company. Okay, so I'm kind of, you can call me a serial
nice.
entrepreneur. Well, okay, so this company, it's called 20 slash
Okay.
20, essentially was created out of, complete frustrations. Since pandemics, everyone's on computers, cell phone, and so we got a lot of eye
Mm,
problems. So, in the eye care industry, this is actually one of the hottest topics people talk about. Dry eyes, macular issues coming from the blue
mm,
light damages, because all the devices that we're using right now generate some
yeah.
type of blue light, the high energy blue lights. Um, I always had this beverage idea, trying to incorporate the ingredients there. Believe it or not, more than 15
Okay.
years ago. But yeah, so at that time, the science wasn't as strong as we have right
Mm,
now to back up all the claims, and also I didn't know anybody in the eye care,
yeah.
the beverage industry. So to me, to go into a beverage industry, it's kind of
Sure.
daunting for me. It's
Yeah. It's
kind of
really not
crazy.
your,
So a lot of
yeah,
people
not
call
your
me crazy.
background. So yeah.
Yeah. So I start with another company, software company, even though I'm a computer
Okay.
retard. But at least my sister and my brother-in-law they used to work for
Okay.
AT&T, the Bell Labs, those
Nice.
companies, so they're pretty well connected in their space. So we started another company, trying to come up with a software, a device to minimize these problems, digital eye strain
Nice.
too, to monitor your posture, your blink rate, your ambient lighting, how close you are to
Wow.
the screen, and yeah. So we were actually one of the first to do that. It was so advanced at the time, actually maybe too
Mm,
advanced to raise money, because a lot of people had no
yeah.
idea. My God, looking at a computer can cause all these problems. So there's a lot of public education that we
Mm,
have to do. But moving forward to a pandemic, and all of a sudden people got locked up using the computer, working with their screen all day. So we're seeing people with dry eyes, especially younger kids
yeah.
getting dry eyes. Like 25 years ago, if I see some 35-year-old getting dry eyes, one of the things that we did back then was order a
Okay.
blood test. Okay, there's got to be something systemically inflammatory causing
Mm,
dry eyes. You got to find
yeah.
out what's going on. You just don't see 35-year-old getting severe
Mm.
dry eyes. But nowadays, if I had to order blood tests, I'd be doing 30, 40 blood tests every week. So it doesn't make
Sure.
any sense because of the computer, right? So even younger kids, 10-year-old getting dry eye because they're on their iPad all day, especially
Hmm.
right now during summer breaks.
Yeah.
The iPad is pretty much like their
It's their
nanny,
babysitter. Yeah.
right? Yeah, exactly. So we have see a lot of issues. We even see my youngest patient, 14-year-old, getting a
Wow.
macular problem, macular edema. So all of a sudden the vision is distorted, and went through several injection surgeries, and one eye is right now. Luckily, he still has got a good eye, but that bad eye is pretty much considered legally blind.
Wow.
Even with glasses, the vision is barely 2200. Okay, but luckily the other eye is still
Yeah.
okay. So we see those kind of strange, weird cases that we never seen, 15, 20
Hmm.
years ago. So you can say out of complete frustration, and I keep telling people to take vitamins. There's a good vitamin, called ARES2 vitamin. It's readily available at Costco, CVS, you name it. You can find, those vitamins there. But most people just
Yeah.
wouldn't listen. They either bought it and just take it, for a few days and then stop taking it, or they just simply wouldn't even, the moment they step out of my office, they just completely forgot about what I told them. So you can say out of frustration. So I just decided to come up with the beverages with all the right ingredient there, science-backed ingredients. We didn't just throw stuff into the formulation and see which one sticks. So all the ingredients were backed by multi-years, multinational studies. That's why it's ARES
Yeah.
two based ingredients. We also added the essential omega
Hmm.
three to minimize dry eye, DHA, EPA, and our omega three is very special. Pretty interesting because we used an algae based omega
Interesting.
three, so it's vegan
Yeah.
friendly. Yeah, and I specifically asked the triglyceride
Hmm.
form omega 3 to enhance our GI
Okay.
absorptions. So it's a premium product, premium ingredient there, and also we add enough water there, the coconut water there to keep people
Hmm.
hydrated because our tear every time when we blink, our upper eyelid will spray a layer of tear over the eye to protect
Got
the
it.
eyeballs. So that tear is about 94 to 98%
Hmm.
water. So you can see a lot of studies, a lot of white papers. If you are into those reading those, studying those white papers, a lot of people will say, oh, certain things are not, they just a placebo effect. They don't really help your dry eye. Well, the problem is those people, a lot of testers, they simply did not drink enough
Okay.
water. So just taking all the vitamins in the world and you're not drinking enough
Hmm.
water, you're not going to see any improvement in your
Yeah.
dry eyes. Okay, so that's why we make sure that we have the bottle size that's good enough will keep you hydrated and with all the right ingredients.
Hmm.
So internally we call our the product the eye drink, we call it the Gatorade for
Yeah.
your eyes. So basically, just if for anyone, pretty much if you spend 2-3 hours or more each day with your devices in front of your screen, just drink at least one
Okay.
bottle a day, up to 4 bottles, and keep your eyes hydrated and protect your macula, protect your retina.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Now, would you still
Mhm.
recommend? And we were having this conversation ahead of time, like blue blocker glasses. Even if you don't wear glasses, but blue blocker glasses
Mhm.
to help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's so many different manufacturers out
Yeah.
there right now. Unfortunately, none of them were actually, FDA
Of course.
regulated. That people, FDA just, there's no specific guideline how much the blue light needs to get filtered out. So my suggestion is invest into a good pair of lenses that filter out the blue light, and make sure there's actually equipments out there. Uh, I'm pretty sure not all doctors, own that equipment, but there are actually equipments out there to measure the amount of blue light being filters.
Hmm.
Okay, we do have it at my office.
Okay.
There are ones that patient walked in with, some lenses, some frame they purchased online, and they came back in, and then, basically we went through the test, and you only filter out 1 to 2% of the blue light, which I thought was a joke.
Yeah.
And then personally, yeah, we're not sponsored by Kodak, but personally, I'm wearing the one made by Kodak. This one filtered up to 80%.
Yeah.
So these are pretty, pricey lenses, but to me, it's worth every
Yeah.
penny.
Well, it's as
It's like buying
opposed
a pair of
to
shoes, right?
yeah, as opposed to not being able to see. I'm kind of right there with you.
Yeah. So it's just one of this pair. I personally think that's just my take. I would invest more money into the
Yeah.
lenses versus the
Hmm.
frame. But a lot of people are going the other way. They spend hundreds or thousands on a pair of frame, Cartier frame, but they got
Yeah.
cheapy lenses. Yeah, so that's the problem. I'd rather have a cheap frame, but
But
excellent
yeah,
pair of lenses,
exactly.
and
That are
that's
doing the
just my
job that they're
my
supposed to be
philosophy.
doing. Yeah.
Yeah. So anytime I look at my cell phone or looking at the screen, I put my
Hmm.
pair on. All my kids wear these, and that's something that I strongly
Yeah.
recommend.
Absolutely.
And taking your vitamins too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So let's talk a little bit about the juice that you created. How did you go about that process? I mean, you knew about the vitamins, you knew about
Oh.
the bits and pieces, but how did you come together with that formula that you use?
Well, you can say primarily that came from the feedbacks from my
Okay.
patients. I asked them, a lot of kids are drinking, all the juices, Gatorade, Prime, which is fairly
Hmm.
recent, and naked juices, whatever you name it. Those kids or sodas. Those are another thing earlier
Got
on.
it.
they rather drink those beverages instead of water. So that's the thing. And parents somehow, they are prone into buying, and a lot of parents knew they were not exactly a great product, a lot of sugar
Hmm.
there, but somehow they still purchase those products for their
Yeah.
kids. So instead of drinking those, why not just come out with a beverage that kids will
Hmm.
love, or people, young adults will
Sure.
love, and also it's, can it's benefit for
Hmm.
your eyes. So that's why I, put two and two together and come up with this beverages.
Okay.
And the journey was very another interesting thing, because we have to search for the formulation labs to
Yeah.
work with us. A lot of labs just thought I was crazy when we signed the NDA, and then tell them that that's my idea, putting this omega-3 into the beverages, because omega-3 is a fatty, it's a
Of course.
fat-based ingredients. So you're putting a oil-based ingredient into a juice. People just thought I was crazy, and some lab even want to charge a $50,000 upfront to even want to
Yeah.
work with me, almost like an open retainer
Yeah.
with attorney.
Yeah.
And I just wasn't into that. So yeah, but it was very interesting getting all the feedback. A ton of
Hmm.
naysayers saying that there's no way you can get this done, and there's reason that such beverage doesn't even
Yeah.
exist. Yeah. So, but luckily, after a year and a half, 2 years, hey, we have the
Nice.
products.
Nice.
So.
Have you
Mhm.
patented that formula or?
No, 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 we're not. We were recommended not to get it
Interesting.
patented. Yeah, because if we file a patent, then we have to disclose how it was
There you go.
manufactured, all the ingredients, all the secret
Yeah.
sauce, and every other company can just kind of tweak it a
Hmm.
little bit, can bypass
Sure.
our patent. So my patent attorney just say, you know what,
Yeah.
save your money. Yeah, it's not even worth it. Just like Coca-Cola was never
Mm.
patented, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's one of those things. Yeah, so yeah, we definitely have very very unique manufacturing
Mm.
process, and also the ingredient
Yeah.
that we use. Yeah,
So now
so.
you're out in
Mhm.
California. Are you getting this manufactured out there now, or are you looking for other places?
Right now, it's everything is manufactured in
Okay.
California. The bottling plant, they call it the
Mm.
co-packers in California. All the ingredients, the majority of the ingredients are sourced, in
Got it.
California. There's the omega-3 is very, very unique. It actually came from
Mm.
Europe. Yeah, so because algae-based
Yeah.
triglyceride form, extremely unique products. So that came from Europe. Other than that, all the strawberry, because we use actual
Okay.
juice. We don't use
Nice.
artificial fake
Yeah.
juice. We use so orange juice, strawberry, mango,
Yeah.
you name it. So all those fruit are right here,
Hmm.
locally sourced. Yeah, but I think ultimately, our next step is to look for other co-packers in different
Yeah.
states. Yeah.
Makes sense. So it sounds like it
Hmm.
tastes yummy too, on top of just the fact that it's good for you, um,
Yeah.
which may be
Yeah.
helpful to get it down the throats of the kids that really need it too. It just
Yep.
tastes good and it's not a sugary, soft drink or something.
Yeah. Initially, it was so the first 12, 15 samples were so bad because both my kids, they were tester number one,
Yep,
number
there you
two.
go.
So whenever I got the newest batch produced,
Come on, lab rat.
I just basically brought them
Yes.
back, and it has gotten so to a point where my older son told me, "Dad, stop bringing those back. I'd rather
Yeah.
go blind than
Just
like this is how
don't make
bad
me
it
drink
was."
any of this stuff anymore. It's not worth it.
I know. So it was kind of in a way it was kind of funny, but it also was kind of
Sure.
frustrating. All the time that I spent, all the money I spent, I said, "Oh my God, this is
Yeah.
down the drain." And then because I insist on sugar
Mhm.
free
Yeah.
at the time, but we're just I was butting head with the labs. They got so frustrated dealing
Mm.
with me, saying you got to put sugar there. Otherwise, all the ingredients that if you're an eye doctor, if you know the ingredient, you say, "Oh my God, is this even
Yeah.
drinkable?" There's a copper, there's zinc, everything good for
Mm.
your retina, but it's even drinkable. So I ended up, kind of succumb to their request. Okay, we just add a
Yeah.
little sugar
Not
there.
much,
I mean,
but just
initially
enough.
they wanted a lot
Yeah.
more, and they kept saying, you know what, a can of soda, it's got like 35 to 40 grams of
Mhm.
sugars there. I said that's crazy. I don't
Yeah.
want. There's no way I'll put 30 to 40
No,
grams
that's
there.
insane.
So we ended up putting 5 grams,
just enough
and
to
which they
cut the
actually,
taste of
yeah,
some of
just
the
enough to
ingredients
to
and
cover
yeah.
the, yeah, and the bottle is much bigger than a can
Okay.
of Coke. So, proportion wise, like ratio wise, we're definitely way, way, way
Mm.
healthier. You can create the best, the healthiest product in the world, but if it tastes
Yeah.
like crap,
What's nobody's gonna
no one
yeah,
will take
nobody's
it.
gonna drink it at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if you can get
So
it to where
that's
it tastes good too, and it's not only just the stuff that you're putting in there for the eye part of it. I mean, it's good for you, period. At that point, sounds
yeah.
like with the ingredients you're using.
Yeah, so definitely, it's the correct
Yeah.
ingredients, science-backed ingredients. Every doctor, eye doctor, anyone working in the eye care industry knows, basically knows about the
Mm.
ingredients. So that's what we do, kind of like the gold center, except we make it into a delicious beverage right now that finally people can start
Yeah.
consuming it. Yeah,
What's been
so
your
rather than
what's
forcing
been your
pills.
biggest challenge with this, this new product? It sounds like on the last one you were kind of way ahead of the wave or whatever, and this one sounds like it's at least I think you're kind of riding that wave getting into it, especially with the problems we're seeing. What's been the biggest challenge for you?
Yeah, the biggest challenges for me, I would say, it's actually going from eye care industry to the
Yeah.
beverage industry. The cultures are
Hmm.
completely different. Okay. um, I mentioned this multiple times on different podcasts that every time I talk about this, if I piss off a lot of people in the eye care industries, there's always this sense of
Yeah.
urgency. So if we want to get something done, we get it done, and then we either beat the deadline or we
Mm.
meet
Yeah.
on deadline. But in the beverage industry, there's no such thing as sense of urgency. They tell you something, oh, we'll deliver this in 2 to 3 weeks, whatever. Ended up two to
Yeah.
three months. And if they say, okay, we'll basically submit your final formulation for FDA review, and then we'll get everything finalized April 4th. You should get a complete package so you can go into production
Mm.
April 4th.
No.
That didn't happen. You waited until end of
Uh,
June to get that package. So it's just one of those things that is
are
very,
you
very
are you sure
frustrating.
they're not former
Yeah.
federal government workers that are working for these companies?
Yeah, but my CMO, he's extremely experienced in the
Okay.
beverage industry. He already
All
warned
right.
me about it. Yeah, he said, you don't want to rush those people, especially those label designers, bottle
Mm.
designers. They basically, they want to get inspired. So you put them under a certain time pressures, they're going to come up with a pretty bad
Hmm.
design, but even though it's written on the
Yeah.
contract, right?
You've got to get it
So
done in this time. Yeah. Oh, I get it.
yeah, and it's still and you still don't want to force them to finish their
Wow.
design. So it's just I don't think I'll ever get used to
No,
it.
no, no, no. Like I said, I have no
Yeah,
patience for
yeah,
people that need to get inspired. You know what? You
yeah,
need to get done so you can get paid and move on to the next one.
yeah. So I told my team that there's no, I mean, we absolutely cannot let that
Yeah,
culture basically
sure.
infect our company. We have to stick with, I still consider a eye care slash
Yeah.
wellness company, even though
Yeah,
our
you're
product
coming out. Yeah,
is in
you're
the beverage
linked to
format.
that industry, but yeah, you have
Yeah,
a higher calling than just getting a juice put
yeah.
together.
So yeah, so I'm hoping moving forward, we'll operate like eye
Yeah,
care industry
absolutely.
companies rather than a beverage
Well, I
company.
think
Yeah.
once you get
Hmm.
past all that formulation and getting it cleared and everything else, then it just comes down to production. Okay, let's get this going, and then it's
Yeah.
consistent production, and you just got to sell it at that point. Have you
Yeah.
officially launched it yet, or are you still in that pre-launch?
Yeah, we did a soft launch out of
Okay,
the practice. Starting April, we did phenomenally. Anywhere from 550 to 800 50 bottles a
nice,
month.
awesome.
And yeah, so that's just out of my
Mhm.
practice, and I'm seeing patients 4 days a week. We're doing a more of an official launch
Okay,
next month. We have a trade show coming up in
got
Las
it.
Vegas. It's the eye care industry trade show, one of the
Huge.
biggest ones. So we'll have a booth there. I call it the marketing 1.0 is right now. Phase one is we're selling through eye doctors'
Yeah, which makes
offices.
sense. Yeah.
So yeah, so that's it. And then or from our website, the
Mhm.
eyedream.com. So those are the two places you can purchase the beverages right now. And then phase 1.5 is we'll be introducing the product to those specialty supermarket like a Whole Food,
Yep.
Sprouts, those places. And then obviously the next phase is going to regular store,
Mhm.
CVS, those
Yeah.
places, or 7-Eleven,
Yeah.
those places.
Once it
So
kind of hit.
but my
Yeah.
CMO, yeah, my CMO, he makes it, basically he calls a shot because he's very
Sure.
experienced. He wrote several books in the I can for the beverage
Okay.
industry. So he's my
Yeah.
main guy.
Awesome.
Hmm.
What as far as you launching the company, what's been your biggest challenge? I mean, have you funded this 100% out of pocket, or have you got some other eye doctors that have invested? Or
Yeah, yeah. Initially, I
okay,
funded everything. Okay, from and then I just recently started
yep,
raising money. So our current investors are all
yeah,
ophthalmologists.
makes sense.
Yeah. So they invest in the company, and everyone thought it was a fantastic
Hmm.
product. And they were, I mean, okay, when you, when I told them about the product, everyone's kind of
Yeah,
skeptical. My God, can you actually make this into beverage? And once they
yeah,
try it, so ooh, wow, that's amazing. And they look at the labels and everything. So ooh, wow, that's the ARAS 2 formulation
hmm,
right there. So they start, basically invest, into the
hmm,
company.
nice.
So and we're in the early, kind of like a C funding
Sure.
stage right
Yeah,
now. Yeah.
yeah,
So that's where we are at this
yeah.
point.
That makes
Hmm.
complete sense. And I mean, I think it's a really smart move for a lot of eye eye care practices and things like that. I mean, it's another revenue source for
Hmm.
them. You're doing what's right for your clients, and you're also you
Yeah.
don't have to overcome the, well, is this really what it is, when your doctor's saying, hey, I would recommend this. This is something that I've tested, and I recommend it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that's a great launch model to kind of get it out there into the public a little bit more.
Yeah, and especially we have the data to back
Yeah.
up our efficacy. I mean, how many vitamins can say that? I
Yeah.
mean,
How many of
use
them
your
say, well,
vitamin
yeah,
water,
these are not
Gatorade.
been,
Yeah,
not been
yeah.
tested by
We
FDA, and
yeah, we have the instrument to measure that your macula indeed
mm,
absorb all the
yeah.
ingredients. So the bioavailability is way superior compared to the
Mm,
capsule. So we already knew that before going in, because the liquid is definitely far superior than the
sure.
capsules. But we just had no idea. After 90 days of testing, having patients drinking at least one
Mm,
bottle a day, all of a sudden you see this macular
mm,
pigmentation increase
yeah.
dramatically. So that's just
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, and we also have it. We have questionnaire to kind of monitor their
Mm,
dry eyes, and we have a lot of people coming back here saying that their dry eye, definitely their eyes don't feel as dry toward the
mm,
end of the day. We especially, there's a banker down the street. She always come back. She comes to me like every few months, complain about dry eyes for the past, I don't know, 10
sure.
15 years. And she's kind of volunteered to become a tester, and
Mhm.
then basically she came back 90 days later saying that, my
This is
God, this is
awesome.
really,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, definitely a lot less burning toward
Sure.
the end of the day. So that's we get a lot of those
Mhm.
testers right now. So so it's amazing that having the product that tastes good and also is
Yeah.
efficacious,
Well,
we
I
actually
mean,
see a
but
clinical
yeah,
data
actually,
exploding
they
improvements.
are feeling different and everything else. I mean, that's a big
Yeah.
advantage.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So definitely a very, very unique, very
Yeah.
special products.
What's so you've got that initial soft launch. We're going to get a little bit heavier launch. What's your timetable for kind of rolling into like the next level of, let's say, a Whole Foods or something?
I think Q1 toward the end
Okay.
of
Wow.
March, I believe, or early April. There's a huge. They do those Whole Food or Sprout. They have their actually own
Yeah.
expos. I believe one of them is actually in
Okay.
Arizona. So we'll be there, and then and go from there. I think 2026 will be very,
Yeah.
very exciting to have this product start scaling up. We already have people coming from South Korea, Taiwan, and China trying to get this product over
Nice.
there. But shipping beverage there is going to be
Plus
extremely
they
expensive.
plus they
Number
have a
one,
nasty habit of
getting a
trying to
man.
figure out your formula and then compete against you
Exactly,
at that
exactly.
point.
So I have to be very, very careful
Yeah.
about that. But our manufacturing process is
Yeah.
pretty unique. There's one thing that we added to it. So I'm not sure how easy it is for them to figure out, because no one ever used that method to produce a
Okay.
juice.
Nice.
We're the first one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at least that's what the factory
Yeah.
told us. They had never heard that, using
Okay.
that technique to manufacture
That's
a juice.
awesome.
Yeah. So, but we have to be
Hmm.
extremely careful when it comes to those
Yeah.
countries.
No, I mean, I've
Especially,
seen
yeah.
it multiple times with clients of mine that, have they, they'll make an agreement with somebody over there and it's like, okay, yeah, we'll buy some. And then, oh yeah, we figured out your process and,
Yeah.
then we'll produce it here. Oh, great. Yeah. Then they're going to try and
Yeah.
fire it back and sell
Exactly.
it against you here. Now, are
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
making it available on Amazon at all, or is it
We
okay?
might, but right now it's not in
Okay.
the plan. Um, because Amazon, they do charge
Mm.
quite a bit, and the shipping,
Yeah.
that's another thing. Because we use a premium product, so our cost was actually very,
Yeah.
very high. Yeah, compared to other beverage
Sure.
that you see out there. So we the CMO called it pretty much like the
Mm.
Rolls Royce of
Yeah.
beverage. All the ingredient they add up.
Sure.
So our profit margin is definitely not as high as other
Got it.
beverages out there. So other beverage, they might be able to afford to sell it
Yeah.
on
And they've
Amazon
got
and
enough
get a
margin in
pretty big
there
cut.
to, yeah.
Give it, yeah, yeah. We just don't have that
Yeah.
right now. Will we eventually get to that point?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think once we
Well,
scale
yeah, of
up,
course, everybody. Yeah.
but there's, but it just, I pretty much I insist on using the premium products. My kids drink them every day. I drink them
Yeah.
myself every day. So I everything has to be natural. All the juice, everything. I don't want to, basically save a few
Yeah.
pennies here or there by using artificial flavoring, artificial
Heck,
sweeteners,
you were
things
having
like
a hard
this.
enough time with
It
sugar
just
alone, and that's just natural sugar.
I know exactly. So to save money there,
Yeah.
I just don't think
No.
it's worth it.
No, I'm
Yeah.
I'm with you.
So
Yeah, and I mean, as long as you explain that to people that hey, it's a premium product, we don't use
hmm
garbage in it. I mean, it is all natural. Okay, yeah,
yeah,
I'm willing to spend a little bit more because once
yeah,
again, it's whatever I spend on that's still going to be way cheaper than if I start to lose my eyesight, and you've got to help me get my eyesight back. If I get
yeah.
my eyesight back,
So
yeah,
yeah, normally I think someone, if you do go by the ratio, the cost wise, with our cost, normally a beverage like this probably sell close to
okay.
$70. Yeah, and we sell it for three seventy
Oh wow,
five. That goes to
super
show
cheap.
you
That's
how,
I mean,
you know.
I
Yeah, I'm trying to keep it as reasonable as
yeah,
possible. That so potentially billion, not just million, billions of
yeah.
people can benefit from
Well, I mean,
the
I
beverage. If I sell it for $6, $7, yeah, I mean the number of people can benefit from the ingredients obviously probably
yeah.
cut in half or maybe
Yeah,
more,
I mean, and
right?
you got to be able to,
So
if you're going to get into Whole Foods and stuff like that. I mean, you got to figure at least a 50 to
yeah,
60% haircut off the top,
oh yeah,
wholesale wise, get in there.
that's
Yeah,
pretty much, yeah. So right now at this point we have to scale
yeah,
up and also cost down. That's the two things
yeah.
that we're
Well, I
trying to
mean,
do.
and that
So
will come
next
too. I
batch,
mean, as you build your volume up, you
eventually,
can
yeah,
get your costs down, and then get that under control a little
yeah,
bit more. But no, I mean, I was
yeah,
expecting closer to that $6 or $7 mark. I mean,
yeah. That's the way that that should be the
yeah,
pricing. Like if another company
yep,
was running it, that and then they look at
mm,
our costs. My God, Jesus, you guys are using everything all premium,
yep,
including the bottles. By the way, we don't use
yep,
the cheapy ones. Ours pretty sturdy ones. So everything add up, and you have to sell it for between
mm,
6 and 7 to
sure.
justify the cost. Um, but like I said, I try to keep it as
Mm.
low as possible. And hopefully, and that's why I've been pretty upfront. I need to be transparent with all my investors. Hey, look, don't expect
We're
we'll
not
be
we're not
profitable for
making
the
our
first couple
billions
of
on this
years.
first round.
Yeah, yeah. So it's
Yeah,
they understand. Those ophthalmologists, they understand very,
yeah,
very well. Luckily, and so next round we're still trying to raise
mm,
money right now, always as a star company. But that's one of the things I keep telling all the potential investors. That, look, if you expect this company to be profitable within
yeah.
12 months,
It ain't gonna happen.
look for another
Yeah,
yeah, look for another project. It's
yeah.
not going to happen here. Yeah, we have to reinvest all the money
Sure.
back into the company, all the
Makes
profit into
complete
the
sense.
back
Yeah,
into the
because I mean,
company.
you got to get,
Yeah,
I mean, you probably find a better coal manufacturer that you can work with that can pull costs down
yeah,
a little bit more, and then you get expanded distribution in areas like Whole Foods and stuff like that. Which, I mean, I
yeah,
bet you could probably eke up the price a little bit going into Whole Foods. I mean, you could probably sell it for 3, and they'd turn around and sell it for 6 in those cases. I mean, but it's the
Yeah,
reality. I mean, if you go to Whole Foods, you're going to pay a little bit more money for the products that they bring in. But yeah, I mean,
yeah, I
yeah,
believe so. Yeah.
it makes complete sense. All right, well let's switch gears here a little bit and talk about the fast five questions. All right,
Okay, it's gonna be
yeah,
interesting
all
one.
right. You wake up in the morning, business is completely gone. You have $500, a laptop computer, a place to live. What would you do first?
I probably look for an opening, optometrist opening, job
Yep.
opening locally first. Start working for someone, and then either during my lunchtime or after hours, and try to explore other
Mm,
opportunities. Um, that's probably what I would do, and start saving up enough money. So that's one something that I would do. Luckily, I'm
yeah,
still licensed,
exactly.
right? I can still see
Yeah.
patient all day, and
Yeah, but I mean, at least you
so
get money coming in,
that's
and then
what
you
I
can
would do.
start building that extra income on the
Yeah, I think that's a great skill set to
outside.
have, and to always, I can go pretty much
Yeah.
go anywhere, and I'm, I pass my board in Nevada. If I have to practice in Las
Hmm.
Vegas, I could do that too. I don't have to necessarily, stay here in
Yeah.
California. So I definitely have
Yeah.
that option.
Less
So
expensive there, that's for
that's what I
sure.
would do. Hmm. Yeah.
What's the biggest business mistake you've ever made?
Ooh,
Pick one.
so many.
Pick one.
The biggest one, um, I would say not raising enough
Okay.
money for my previous
Yeah.
startup. It was a software company, and then I had multiple people told me that don't start the project until I've raised about 7 to 7.5
Okay.
million dollars.
Interesting.
So for me, it was almost impossible. Because I couldn't go out and tell investors, look, give me your money. I'll put it in
Yeah.
the bank until I accumulate 7 million, 7.5. Then I'll
Sure.
work on the project. That doesn't,
Yeah.
it's not going to happen, right? So, but multiple people told me that software company, it's like a black pit that you keep pumping money in there, and then you keep updating
Yep.
your algorithms. And we started with less than two
Yeah.
hundred thousand dollars. So that I think that was one of the in hindsight, I would say that's a huge mistake. But again, if I didn't start right away, that out because we have a very, very unique
Mm.
algorithm, by the way. If I didn't start it back then, I don't think people could actually see the algorithm working, because we actually had a working
Okay.
prototype and people were
Yeah.
impressed what we had. And we raised less than $3 million
Huh.
in total. We're able to come up with something so
Yeah.
unique, so accurate. People were
Yeah.
impressed. Yeah, and then
Yeah.
pandemic hit. That was another issue. If I had enough money in the bank, we could have survived
Mm.
the pandemic, but we just
Yeah.
we didn't. We didn't have enough money. So that's one of the. I would say that's probably been my
Yeah.
biggest mistake. Yeah.
Well, it is what it is, but you learned a lot from that too, you know.
Yeah.
And the other part
So
is software's it's a grind to get there because
yeah.
it's you've always got to be on top of it and it's always changing and yeah, it is
Hmm.
a money pit in a lot of cases. So.
Yeah.
All right, what is a
Yep.
book that you'd recommend for our audience?
Ooh. Um. There's a book talking about the
Yeah.
blue ocean, red ocean, blue
Yep.
ocean
Blue
strategy,
Ocean
I believe
Strategy. I
it's
like it.
called. That's one. Yeah, that's one of my
Yep.
favorite. And then there's another one written recently by Patrick Bet David, Five Step, whatever, Thinking Five
Uh-huh.
Step Ahead.
Yeah, yeah.
I forgot the
Yeah.
exact. Yeah, that was a
Yeah.
good book too. So, but Blue Ocean, Red Ocean, I think that was definitely one of
Hmm.
my favorite. I read a couple times, and my product for sure
It's a
is a
it's a
Blue Ocean
blue yeah,
product.
you are
It's a
floating out
huge
there
Blue
all by
Ocean.
yourself
Yeah,
in this one. So
yeah.
but
So
and
it's
it is
definitely
yeah, it's
qualified
a
for that.
it would qualify as a blue ocean product because it is something that people I think are beginning. I don't think they're quite there yet, understanding what's going on. But the more you're out doing
Hmm.
podcasts and everything else, it starts to add up
Yeah,
because you're like, okay, why is when I have a heavy day, when I've worked a lot, why am I, at times like, okay, I can't see at a distance well, and then times I can't see close up, and it's not something consistent. So that makes more sense.
yeah. but unfortunately, American are lacking
Yeah.
behind in that respect. You just mentioned like countries in Asia, Japan, Korea,
Uh,
Taiwan, China. Those parents are fully aware of the blue
sure.
light issues, so they're
Mhm.
way ahead. So there's a lot of study coming out from that
Yeah.
end earlier, years
Well,
ago.
and that's probably why you're
Yeah,
seeing
and
that
then
that interest out of those areas, because it's
yeah,
like, okay, yeah,
so
how do we fix this?
but
Yeah.
we're catching up. We're definitely catching on, especially when I talk about this at NASA. uh, obviously a lot of young adults, they kind of knew about the blue light, but they had no idea they can cause
Yeah.
those issues. They had no idea it can cause, sleep apnea issues, even, tamoxifen resistant
Mm.
breast cancer issue they're suspecting, or, the melanoma from neck out in that issue, younger adult getting prostate,
Hmm.
issues as well. So there, there's a lot of, there's a lot more awareness now compared to,
Yeah.
5-10 years ago. In a way, that pandemic really
Yeah.
helped us. Yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not sure
Just
it's a good way or
killed one
bad, but
business out of,
it's
yeah,
just
it
one of those
had
things. Yeah,
created a new one out of it as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then now when you go out and talk about, well, your device can cause dry eye, and everyone's like,
That
yes,
explains it.
absolutely,
Yeah.
and I experienced all the issues. Yeah, but 10 years ago, if you talk about that, people say, no, I'm not sure I
Mm.
have those issues. I'm not
Yeah.
sure I have difficulties falling
Yeah.
asleep. But
Well, but I
nowadays,
think,
if
like you
you,
were saying, I think as of the pandemic, there's people are just more screen time than they used to
yeah,
have, and you've got more people working from home than used to be. At least when they were at work, it was like, okay, I don't want to work that hard, so I'm going to get up and get away from my computer. Where they may be at home, pounding out 8 hours,
yeah,
sitting in front of a computer all day without
hmm,
a break.
yeah. So,
What's a tool that you use in your business every day that you might recommend?
um, a tool. Hmm. Um, God, there are so many. But the tool that I use is very, very industry
Okay.
specific. So I'm not sure anyone else
Yeah.
can benefit from it.
Well, I would just say maybe in your
One
in your
thing,
your
yeah.
side business there, what's something that you use that you leverage and it helps you become more productive or whatever.
Um, that's an extremely
Yeah.
difficult answer for me to answer, honestly. I'm just a
Yeah.
workaholic myself. So I get up at 5 o'clock, start working, and then answering all my emails. So obviously, if I had to do anything, if there's an AI that can actually help me respond to some of the emails, that'll be fantastic.
I
But
got it for you.
it's just
Fixer AI. Yeah, I was
really,
trying to train AI to manage my email, because I've got multiple
uh huh,
companies. So I mean, I've got literally 10
uh huh,
different email addresses, and I get anywhere from 100 to 150 emails in per day. And then of course I get on
hmm,
all these
yeah,
marketing lists and all that, and it compounds. And I was missing when somebody would, a client or somebody would ask a question. So Fixer, which is Fyxer.ai, you
let me write it
basically
down.
go in, it's like $50 a month, and it's
Uh huh,
unlimited number of email addresses. And all it does is
okay,
like, I use Google, Google throughout most of my practice or most of my businesses. What it does is it basically goes in and it sets up 6 tags within your Google or Outlook.
mm,
And what it ends
okay,
up doing is, as everything comes in, it categorizes that. So it'll take, like, there's the first tag is needs to respond. So if somebody says, "Hey, Dr. Wu, I want to have a meeting with you about,
mm-hmm,
the eye drink," it'll automatically categorize that, so you can go in and just look at that. So if you're running between patients during the day, you can quickly go in, just look at
mm-hmm,
your, hey, stuff that I need to respond to. What it also does, though, is it formulates a response and puts it in drafts. So all you have to do is just go in, check your, look at what the email was, look at what the response is, and then tweak that response and send. And so it has
I'll look
massively
into it.
increased my productivity.
Wow,
Fixer,
Fixer,
yeah. And then if you do
okay,
YouTubes, or if you do sort of like Zooms, it'll actually
uh huh,
pop a little recorder onto the Zoom, and it records the conversation, summarizes it into an email, and then that email goes to both you and the person that you were on the Zoom with,
Or on
and you can
the
just hit
Zoom.
send and send that to them, like, so it gives them a summary of what we talked about. You have a summary of what you talked about and all that.
Okay.
So pretty slick.
Hmm.
It is very slick.
Sounds a little scary too.
No, but it's great.
It's
Well,
probably
I mean, and
smarter than any
yeah, and I mean, the
assistant.
cool part about it is it starts to learn you. So it learns how you would
Hmm.
respond, and it keeps tailoring the responses to the point now that when I get
Okay.
it, I'll just look at the response and I'm like, yep, that's the way I would say it. Send at that point. Sometimes it's a little bit more
Okay.
polite than I would be, but yeah, that actually is not necessarily a bad thing. But yeah, that's the tool I would
Yeah.
recommend for it. It's wonderful.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll look into it for sure. Yeah.
Last question. What is your definition of freedom?
Freedom means I can do whatever I want, or
Yep.
legally, of course. If I wake up in the morning and if I say, "Oh God, I got this idea, let's
Hmm.
work on it," then I have the financial resource and the time
Yeah.
to do that. To me, was because like I
Yeah.
said, I'm a
You're not going to
workaholic.
stop being that.
Taking vacation, yeah, taking a vacation, any vacation longer than 10 days, is driving
Yep.
me crazy. And so for me, but sometimes I just have to take time off
Hmm.
away from work. But it's sometimes kind of
Yeah.
challenging. So for me, freedom is if I decided that this morning when I wake up I want to do whatever I need,
Hmm.
whatever I wish. If I decide to, hey, let's charter a plane and go someplace, that would be
That's
great.
awesome.
Yeah, I don't have to worry about that. That's a freedom that hopefully one day I can
Yep.
experience in that. Yeah, but just there's so many things that in my mind that I want to do, certain thing I want to accomplish, I want to build. But all the resources, the time, everything is very,
Hmm.
very limited. Yeah, I only have 24 hours, two hands, and I'm seeing patient 4 days a week.
Just a couple hundred
Yeah,
million eye
so
drinks, and
yeah,
you're there, my friend.
yeah. I have other things in the
Yeah.
pipelines. I have we have algorithm that can actually minimize drunk
Nice.
driving
Wow.
issues just by looking at your
Hmm.
eyes. So that's another thing that I think a lot of people can
Hmm.
benefit from. Yeah. So, but that would be a very, very fascinating project to
Yeah.
work on. Imagine trying to recruit a bunch of drunk guys come in here and
It will, it will
to
test
test
your eyes.
the
Yeah.
accuracy
See
of
if the
the
software
software.
works. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. So that's another project that
Nice.
I have. I actually own the patent for that.
Nice.
Yeah,
Could
yeah.
that
So
could that be
uh,
like used like in the like law enforcement or something like that as well?
could be, yeah, could be anything. Could be any vehicle can kind of get that device
Okay.
installed. So if you are obviously we need
Yeah.
baseline data, right? So if you compare to the baseline data, you're under the influence, then you're not going to be able to drive. The ignition
Mm.
won't start. Even if you drive an EV, the EV will you can't even put into drive
Okay.
mode
Nice.
to drive it. So I think that it can be
Hmm.
easily done because we already have the algorithm. We just tweak the because we're working on that. The previous startup, the
Yeah.
digital eye strain. We monitor your blink rate, your everything, your pupils. So
You
it's
are
that
you already
same
had
algorithm. We
part of
just
it.
tweak
Yeah.
it a
It's
little
just
bit.
you tweaking it for a different
Yeah,
purpose.
yeah. And obviously, main thing is to come in with a device that's crash proof and also can tolerate
Mm.
heat because we have the little device
Yeah.
installed in the car. So imagine in the summer in
Hmm.
Las Vegas, the car probably be like
Yep.
160 degrees inside or
Yep.
170. You need to have a device that's robust enough.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So, but that can be
Hmm.
easily done. Um, but that's something that after the eye drink, probably my
Nice.
next project. That shouldn't
Yeah.
take too long because we already have the
Yeah.
algorithms.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just kind of
So,
tweaking it for a different purpose at this point. And
yep.
awesome.
Hmm.
Well, Dr. Wu, if somebody is interested in learning more about the eye drink, learning a little bit more, where's the best place to get the information?
You can go to our website, the idrink.com,
Pretty simple.
the idrink.com, or if you need to reach out to me, just go to LinkedIn, look me up. I do have a marketing team manage all my
Okay.
social media. I'm not exactly a social media
Good.
savvy person. So if anything that's that
Somebody will
direct
answer
goes
you.
directly to me, my team will, yeah, a lot of time they
Yeah.
will answer for me, but some there are certain things that will
Okay.
let me know, so I just respond either in between patients or during
Mhm.
evening hours. But I try to get to them as
Yeah.
quickly as possible. Yeah, I don't procrastinate. So that's
Mhm.
another thing about our industry versus the beverage industry is very,
Yeah,
very different.
absolutely. All
Yeah.
right, my friend. Well, thank you for
Mhm.
being on today. I really appreciate it. Thank you for sharing some of your advice to our audience. And I really wish you well with the iDrink. I just think it's a phenomenal idea. And it's something that I think more of us are going to need going forward. So
Yeah.
glad that you're getting it out there.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for having me
You're
here.
welcome. And folks, as always, make sure you subscribe to the channel where you're watching or listening to it. And we will see you guys back here the very next time.
All in, everything